Today, we're diving into an invisible war zone. It's a world where a few lines of code can do more damage than a bomb, shutting down a power grid, freezing a factory, and bringing our actual physical world to a grinding halt. So here's the big question. How do you shut down a massive steel mill with nothing but a keyboard? I know, it sounds like something straight out of a movie. But this isn't fiction. It's a very real threat, and it happens way more often than you'd think. So let's get into how it's actually done. Let's start with a bit of a ghost story. Back in 2014, a German steel mill suffered huge physical damage from a cyber attack. But here's the catch. The only reason we even know about it is because of a single, vague mention in a government report. It was never made public. And that right there tells you something crucial. The biggest, most damaging attacks often happen completely in the shadows.
So how do these attackers even get their foot in the door? Well, it usually starts with something called port scanning. The analogy here is perfect. Just imagine a burglar walking around a building, checking every single door and window to see if one is unlocked. In the digital world, ports are those doors and windows. Attackers just systematically check for any that have been left open.
You can almost think of it as a standard playbook. Step 1 is just scanning for those open ports. Step 2, they peek inside to see what's running. Is it a web server, a database? And then, step 3 is the kill shot. Once they know what software is there, they use a known, pre-existing vulnerability to break in. It's just a methodical process of finding one tiny crack and prying it wide open.
So why are so many systems just wide open like this? Honestly, a lot of the time, it just comes down to laziness. See, most software runs on standard, predictable ports. It's just the default, easy setup. And attackers know this. They target those default ports first. You know, a really simple defense is to just change the port to a random number, but so often, in the rush to get things up and running, that tiny, crucial step just gets skipped.
You know, the game itself has changed dramatically over the years. A decade ago, attacks like one called Night Dragon were all about spying, stealing corporate secrets. But today, with things like Snake ransomware, the motive is just pure extortion. They're not just looking around anymore. They're grabbing the controls and demanding a fortune to give them back.
And when I say a fortune, I am not kidding. Back in the day, a ransomware attack might ask for a few $100s, but when you shut down an entire industrial operation where every single hour of downtime costs a fortune, well, the ransoms can climb into the tens of millions of dollars. So let's take a closer look at a predator that plays for these kinds of stakes: Snake ransomware. This isn't some off-the-shelf malware. It is custom-built for each target, and its method is just brutal. First, it hunts down and kills the essential industrial processes. It literally shuts off the assembly line. Then, after the damage is done, it encrypts all the files. The target is completely paralyzed. And this is exactly what they use to shut down Honda's operations across Japan and Europe. But what's really scary is that the way in isn't always some complicated, genius-level hack. In 2021, the Colonial Pipeline, which supplies almost half the fuel to the entire U.S. East Coast, was shut down. And the cause? Get this. It was a single, stolen password for an old VPN account. That's it. And just watch how fast this digital problem spiraled into a real-world crisis. The attackers got in on April 29th and just sat there, quietly, for about a week. Then, at 5 a.m. on May 7th, a ransom note pops up on a screen. Just over an hour later, the entire pipeline is shut down, sparking actual panic buying and fuel shortages across the country. That's how fast this stuff can happen.
And the price to get the gas flowing again? A cool $4.4 million. And even though the FBI managed to claw some of that back, the message to criminals everywhere was loud and clear. Hitting critical infrastructure pays, and it pays well.
But this goes way beyond just financial crime now. We're seeing these exact same tools being used as weapons of war. In December of 2023, the battlefield went fully digital when Russian state-sponsored hackers hit Kyivstar, Ukraine's largest telecom provider. And their goal wasn't money, it was chaos.
This attack shows a completely different level of threat, and it all comes down to one word: patience. This was no smash and grab. The hackers got into the network way back in May, and then spent the next 5 months just moving silently, mapping everything, and gaining total control. The destructive attack in December? That was just the final move in a very long, very deliberate military operation. And there was no question about the motive here. It wasn't money, it was pure destruction. The hackers themselves bragged about it, claiming they wiped thousands of computers and servers, and, this is the key part, all the backups too. The goal was to cripple the country's ability to communicate for as long as humanly possible.
This is exactly why we have to separate the Hollywood myth of hacking from the reality. That image of some kid in a hoodie breaking into a system in 30 seconds, that's entertainment. The reality is a team of patient, well-funded professionals who might spend a year or more planning a single attack. This is very, very serious business.
So this all brings us to the core of the problem. For decades, the systems that run our factories and power plants relied on something called security through obscurity. The thinking was, hey, nobody knows how this old, weird system works, so it must be safe. But now everything's connected to the internet, and that obscurity is gone. These systems are now a primary target, and decades of being ignored have made them dangerously easy to hit.
Which really leaves all of us with a pretty sobering thought. The invisible systems that run our entire modern world, from the power in our homes to the water in our taps, they're not just infrastructure anymore. They're battlegrounds, and we all have to start asking, how secure are they really?
Look, these are complicated, often hidden threats, and it's easy to feel overwhelmed. If you found this breakdown valuable for shedding some light on it all, please take a second to like and subscribe. It genuinely helps us continue making more explainers on the topics that really matter. Thanks for watching.